Whatever happened to Laurie Partridge? I've heard that question my whole life, and every time I cue up that bright Partridge Family theme, I feel it again, that ache, that mystery. I'm Sarah Reed, and today on Golden American Legends, I want to trace the quiet, powerful story of Susan Dey, the girl next door who became a teen idol at 17 and then chose to disappear with elegance. Not a scandal, not a meltdown, a choice, and that's what makes it so haunting. Here's the twist. While America saw poise and polish, Susan was fighting private battles most of us never knew, pressures, scrutiny, and an eating disorder she later spoke about with raw honesty. She rose all over again on LA Law, grabbed a Golden Globe, and then when the noise got loudest, she stepped off the stage. No reunion tours, no tell-all, just silent. I'll walk you from the first burst of fame to the final bow with what we know and what we respectfully don't. Along the way, let's tackle the David Cassidy rumors, the tabloid pressure, and the decision that still stuns me. A star at her peak, choosing peace over applause. Ready to go back to the 1970s and look a little closer? Let's roll. And as we go, tell me, do you remember your first time seeing Laurie Partridge on screen? I didn't expect this. Susan Dey had 0 acting credits when she landed Laurie Partridge. 17, a California teenager, blue eyes, brunette hair, and this calm, composed vibe that felt older than her years. Casting saw it right away. America did too. Overnight, she was Laurie, the reliable big sister in a widowed mom's touring family band. The Partridge Family wasn't just a sitcom, it was a mood. Colorful bus, catchy song, that safe, sunny slice of early 70s TV. But think about being 17 and suddenly recognized everywhere. Susan later said it felt like being an adult without actually being one. That hits me. You're expected to be poised, to always be on when you're still figuring out who you are. And yet she nailed it. Her elegance read as effortlessness. The fans loved her for being steady, pretty, but not flashy, smart, but not smug. I've talked to people who watched with their parents every Friday night. Laurie was the anchor. You trusted her. Here's the part I keep returning to, that instant fame laid the groundwork for a lifetime of expectations. It opened doors, sure, but it also built a cage. And behind the smile, Susan was already learning the cost. Which brings us to the part the audience never saw. Behind that perfect 1970s hair and the sisterly grin, Susan was hurting. She later spoke openly about battling anorexia that began during the Partridge Family years. In the 70s, nobody talked about that. There wasn't language, there weren't resources like there are today. She said recovery was something you can't do alone. Imagine carrying that while the world calls you flawless. The pressure was nonstop, long hours, magazine covers, fan mail, body scrutiny. When you're still a teenager and every photo is picked apart, food and control can become a battlefield. She kept working professional, on time, poised, while inside she was wrestling with something that doesn't care about call sheets. Later on, she also expressed disgust with tabloids that tried to exploit any personal struggles. I get it, fame invites cameras, pain does not. Here's what I respect most. She didn't dress it up as a phase. She named it, she gave other women permission to name it too. But the scars shaped how she moved through Hollywood from then on. If you ever wondered why she guarded her life so tightly, start here. This is the fault line that explains so much of what came next. Let's talk about the question that never dies. Susan Dey and David Cassidy. On screen, they were the golden siblings. Keith and Laurie. Off screen, the truth is simpler and less juicy than fan fiction. Neither ever confirmed a romance. They worked together, they were young, and then life moved on. David's fame exploded into a global teen idol phenomenon. Susan stayed more reserved. That gap in public heat fuels rumors. Always has. I've read the memoirs, the interviews, the retrospective. There's plenty of speculation, but not a lot of solid evidence of a love story or a blow-up. What we do know is that Susan kept her distance from Partridge reunions for her privacy. That choice naturally put space between her and David's very public world. Some outlets even phrased it as her cutting ties. I hear that and think boundary. After everything she navigated as a teen, she drew a line. Honestly, that's healthy. And if you're hoping for some smoking gun confession, there isn't one. Sometimes the unromantic truth is that coworkers remain coworkers. For fans, that mystery can feel unsatisfying. For Susan, it looks like peace, which sets the stage for Act 2 of her career, where she proved she was so much more than Laurie. I love a reinvention story, and Susan's is textbook. After the Partridge Family, she chipped away at the teen idol label with TV movies and dramas. Then in 1986, boom, LA Law. As Assistant District Attorney Grace Van Owen, she was sharp, grounded, and formidable. It was miles away from the family band bus, and audiences believed her. Critics did too. She won a Golden Globe for that performance. And it wasn't a nostalgia award, it was respect. What strikes me watching those episodes now is her stillness. She doesn't oversell. She lets the intelligence sit in the silence. That's a skill you only earn by living through noise. The show thrived. She became a face of prestige TV in the 80s, and for a while, it looked like Susan Dey had solved the child star puzzle, survived the first fame, then build a second career on your own terms. But even as the spotlight tilted back to her, you can feel her priorities shifting. Interviews from that era suggest she longed for quieter time, family time. She wasn't chasing an empire, she was making a living and guarding her life. And then she did something rare in Hollywood, she meant it. Which leads us to the decision that still surprises people. Here's the part that makes me stop and breathe. At the height of credibility, Susan stepped back. Not with a press tour, not with a grand goodbye. She just took fewer roles, said no to reunions, and focused on her family. She talked about wanting quiet, about not needing a second career behind the camera. In a town where everyone is always developing something, she chose not to. Think about how countercultural that is. Most stars are trained to keep the brand alive. Talk shows, nostalgia specials, convention circuits. Susan declined. She'd lived the tabloid machine, seen how her personal struggles got poked and packaged, and she wanted out. There's a fierce kind of dignity in that. To me, it isn't a tragedy, it's a boundary drawn with love for her own well-being. Of course, fans felt the loss. When castmates popped up at reunions, she wasn't there. When David Cassidy passed, she stayed silent. That silence isn't cruelty, it's consistency. She decided years ago not to feed the public version of her private life, and she kept that promise to herself. If you've ever walked away from something that didn't feel safe anymore, you know exactly what that costs and what it gives back. So where is Susan Dey today? Here's what we actually know. By the 2000s, she had stepped out of Hollywood. She hasn't sought interviews. She's kept her circle small and her life private. There are whispers about where she lives and the rhythms of her days, but she hasn't invited us in, and we should respect that. What we can say is that she's alive, she's kept her peace, and she seems content to let the work speak for her. And that brings me back to our title. The tragedy fans feel isn't scandal, it's absence. We miss her voice. We want the behind-the-scenes stories, the memories, the laughter between takes, the truth of those hard years. We may never get it, that can feel heartbreaking. But look at it another way. A woman who survived sudden fame, named her struggle, rebuilt her craft, and then chose herself. That's not a fall, that's a boundary. That's a legacy. So I'll ask you, what would you have done at 34 with a Golden Globe and a full calendar? Take every gig or choose the quiet road? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Your answers always shape where we go next on this channel. If this story moved you, you're my kind of people. I'm Sarah Reed, and this is Golden American Legends, where we dig into the shiny myths and the human hearts inside them. Susan Dey's path reminds me that sometimes the bravest act is to close the door and keep what matters safe. If you grew up with the Partridge Family, tell me your favorite Laurie moment. And if you discovered Susan through LA Law, what scene made you go, oh, she's the real deal? Hit like if you felt that mix of nostalgia and respect today. It really helps more folks find these stories. Subscribe for more American entertainment deep dives, stars we loved, choices they made, and the echoes they left. New episodes every week. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being kind in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.